Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Exploring Sacred. It's good to have you here this morning. The chat room is open. Please feel free to join me in the chat room. Let me know if all systems are a go this morning. All right, just going to put us in the chat room there on Facebook and let everybody on Twitter know that we are all set to go. So this morning, as I was thinking about the show and what we'd like to talk about, or what I'd like to talk about, I thought about what about spiritual awakening? And what about spiritual awakening as it pertains to boundaries and discernment? What about that? So I thought, let's do that this morning. Let's talk about that. That's a great subject. And so here we are this morning. And it's a beautiful day here in the Enchanted Forest. Absolutely beautiful. And I'm enjoying every moment of it. It's an autumn day. The leaves are falling. It's actually kind of warm. The sun is out. Spectacular. Yesterday I was walking my grandson in his stroller down a beautiful wooded path. And the leaves were falling. And as I was walking to him, I was talking to him about the season of autumn. That it's my favorite season. And maybe one day it would be his favorite season too. And as I was watching the leaves falling across the pathway, I do as I always do this time of the year. I think about the things that maybe I've been holding on to that I can let go of now. I can put them down, let them fall away. And at the same time, letting things fall away, what is it that is new? What is it that maybe has ripened in my life? What has awakened in my life in the past year since autumn last? And one of the greatest things, of course, is the fact that my grandson is here. He's one of the greatest blessings and awakenings that has happened in my life. And I thought to myself, what about spiritual awakenings? Is there something different about me now that I'm a grandmother? Here in autumn, the leaves are falling and the air is crisp. And I have a hot cup of coffee, a beautiful path to follow with my grandson. What is the awakening? The awakening at this time of my life is the awakening to the crone, to the grandmother. And what does that mean? And I haven't really figured all of that out yet, but it's something to contemplate. Spiritual awakening, discernment, boundaries. For me, whatever stage we're at in our spiritual awakening, slow and steady as she goes. I think for me has always been my mantra, slow and steady as she goes, allowing it all to unfold. Sometimes with some frustration because, when we have a spiritual awakening, and I don't think that that's a one-time event. I think that spiritual awakening is something that happens over and again, sometimes in fits and starts, but over and again throughout our lives. Awakening to something new that says it's time to let that go, or it's time to add on to that, to expand our spiritual understandings, to look back on our understandings. Where do they come from? Hi, Danny. It's good to have you in the chat room this morning. For me, the progression of spiritual awakenings is one of the beautiful things about life. I do believe that for most of us, there's one main event, perhaps, that awakens us spiritually. But once that happens and the door is open and we're awake, I do feel as though it's an occurrence that happens over and again in doses, I believe, that allow us, if it's done properly and sequentially, that allows us to safely unfold and to embrace more, to understand more. Hey, Angie. It's good to have you ladies in the chat room. These days, it seems that there are a lot of people who want instant unfolding, spiritual unfolding. They want instant access to the other side of the veil, regardless of the consequences. Hey, Katie Battle. It's good to have you listening in too. So I've been thinking a lot about all of this as I approach my 58th year next month, about the many times I can say that I've had a spiritual awakening or a spiritual epiphany. And sometimes those awakenings and those epiphanies pause me for just a moment to consider, and sometimes they kind of shake me up. And sometimes they have me questioning what it was that I held as a truth in my life, what I've always known. And most of the time I just keep them to myself. Sometimes I share them with others, sometimes on Wednesday mornings. We all get together and we share. And recently I was teaching a class, and a discussion happened about how do I put this? The sudden wave, I guess, of people who want an instant connect to spirit. And, it brought me back immediately to those things that I heard about Timothy Leary in the 50s and the 60s and LSD, and connecting with the other side of the veil through hallucinogens, opioids, and the fallout from that. Excuse me while I reach the sky, as I touch the sky. Jimi Hendrix. And I can understand why people, might want to force a spiritual awakening, whether it's with LSD or ayahuasca or peyote, the instant. But I will say that I also have had clients over the years that have decided that that's exactly what they wanted to do, and much to the health and detriment of their body, particularly of their neurology. Spiritual awakening, I think, happens for everybody, and I do believe that most people don't even notice it because they're waiting for the big kaboom. They're waiting for the huge display of, rather than considering that sometimes a spiritual awakening happens very quietly, very softly. Moments of realization, moments of questioning. Moments of unease within our own self. Yearnings, longings for something more. When we stop to consider, is this all there is? Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me? Spiritual awakenings happen when we lose someone that we love, when they pass on, when they walk across that veil into the realm of spirit. That can be an awakening. A spiritual awakening can also happen out in nature, sudden epiphanies, sudden moments of thoughtfulness and consideration. Those can also be spiritual awakenings. Sometimes they are like the Big Bang. Most often, they're very, very gentle and soft and hidden to most. And I believe the reason they're hidden is because we're so doggone busy, aren't we? We're busy. So sometimes it is, via the mouths of babes that we can have an awakening. Children say the most amazing things. They share the most amazing experiences that we forget as we get busier, as we get older. Those small awakenings and those reminders from the young ones that remind us of the magic and the wonder that really is all around us. It's out in nature. It's in our own home if we care to look for it. It's in the moments of quiet contemplation, prayer, interactions with other people. We can have moments of aha, or I never thought of it that way. And those moments also lead to spiritual awakening. This time of the year, autumn, heralds a lot of spiritual awakening just by virtue of what it is. The thinning of the veils, the reverence, the honoring of the ancestors. When we call them closer to us. When the days, at least here in the northern hemisphere, get shorter and the nights get longer and we have more time to think if we allow ourselves to think, if we're not numbing ourselves with TV or any other digital information that's constantly pouring in. Sitting in the quiet next to a fire. Sitting in the quiet next to a candle. Sitting around a campfire. A couple of weeks ago, Todd and I went up to Copper Harbor in Michigan. It's such an exquisite place. All of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is breathtaking. And when you get along the Lake Superior shoreline, it really is another world. And as a young child, I was raised by two Yoopers. What does that mean for those of you that have never heard the term Yooper? People from the Upper Peninsula, or the UP as we call it, they're known as Yoopers. And so my adoptive family, 100% Yoopers. Every one of them. And it's a different lifestyle. I think the snow probably begins to fade around April or May in some years in the UP. It's very raw in the Upper Peninsula. And as a kid going to visit grandma and grandpa and aunties and uncles and all of that across the bridge and in the UP, it was a treat. But going there as an adult this last time was quite an awakening, a spiritual awakening. An awakening to the beauty of Superior, or as Gordon Lightfoot refers to it, the great lake they call Gitchagumi. And looking out at the lake, looking out at all of nature, the amazing sunsets and the sunrises, and having an awakening, watching one of the sunsets. That since the last time I was in the UP, there have been some sunsets in my life. And thinking about those things that have set in my life, that are no longer seen, they've become part of a sunset. Sometimes just allowing ourselves to look at nature and how Mother Nature reflects to us our own rhythms can bring awakenings. Sitting there around the campfire, literally on the shore of Lake Superior, right there, listening to the water lapping up over the agates. Thinking about those things that have faded from my life. And pondering what might be new, what may be coming my way. And thinking about, the number of years we get on the odometer, the number of miles that we get on that odometer of life. How we've changed, how I've changed with boundaries in my life. What I'm willing to allow into my life, what I'm no longer willing, and why. And thinking about spirit. And the fact that spirit is not just something that we see on the other side of the veil. A wonderful spiritual awakening that I had a long, long time ago in my life that some people are just now beginning to understand. Just now beginning to understand that you don't need ayahuasca, you don't need LSD, you don't need peyote, you don't need any of those things. All you need to do is open up your awareness to the fact that spirit is everywhere. It's on that great lake. It is the great lake. It is that sun setting and that sun rising, the spirit of the trees, spirit of the stones, of the waves lapping up on the shore. That's one of the most brilliant spiritual knowings about having a human life, is that everything around us is awake and waiting for some of us sometimes to wake up to that fact. Waking up to the fact that just like the seasons, like Mother Nature and her elements, we are connected to all of that. We are that. We have seasons. We have sunrises. We have sunsets. We have dogs and cats that love to play with one another on Wednesday mornings. And that's okay. Sometimes looking outside of ourselves to find those spiritual awakenings leads to other awakenings. I've always been a fan of gentle awakenings. Sometimes life doesn't afford us the gentle awakenings. Life gives us the old, some people call it the cosmic 2x4. Others call it the bringing us to our knees moments in life. Those pauses in life. Spiritual awakening happens for us. And some people, when they have an awakening, they pursue that awakening. I know that I've done that. I pursue the awakening. I educate myself to what I've been awakened to. And I've been very blessed in my life to find wonderful teachers and mentors. I've never been one to assume that if I'm going to pursue an awakening and a course of study about an awakening, that I can just do it on my own. There are lots of great books to read and, of course, YouTube videos and all of that kind of a thing. But I still believe in the beauty of having a human mentor. Not a guru, but a mentor. Somebody who will bless me with the wisdom they've gained from that same sort of spiritual awakening. And I've been really blessed with some amazing teachers, young, old. It's an amazing when we awaken to something. It's an amazing thing that when we are awakened to death, when we are awakened to the need for human contact. I think a lot of us are experiencing that right now. When we have a lot of time on our hands to ponder what it is we've always been taught about a thing, maybe religion, maybe about the definition of family or friends or personal responsibility, whatever it happens to be, boundaries. When we pursue an awakening, an epiphany, maybe that was brought to us in a dream, let alone the circumstances of physical life, rather than reaching out for something artificial or the latest and greatest and groovy in the world of metaphysics and spirituality, maybe what's being asked for is a pause. Maybe what's being asked for is an understanding that with a really great mentor and an understanding that there's great wisdom within each and every one of us, that a mentor, a teacher, a counselor, whatever that is for you, can help us uncover. And a slow progression is a really great way to go. This recent development in the world of spiritual awakenings, of microdosing ayahuasca, consuming lots of peyote, mushrooms. I mean, and I'm not judging when it's done. Any of those things are done appropriately by the shamans and the medicine women and the medicine men that utilize those plants as part of their spiritual practice, who have been schooled and trained and utilize those things for a purpose. I'm not talking about that. But what I am talking about is like the modern day version of when I was a kid, it was a big deal to go get a Ouija board and open up spirit utilizing the Ouija board. And I've known a lot of people that have had lifelong issues, right? A spiritual awakening using a Ouija board as a child that has followed them throughout decades of a lifetime. And a lot of people say, you know, Dee, why are you so uptight when it comes to things like Ouija boards and seances and all of those kind of things? Why do you get so uptight about that? Well, as I said last night in my class, I'm teaching a wonderful class on honoring and walking with the ancestors. Spirit is real. Spiritual awakenings happen to all of us, but the pursuit of the spiritual awakening, the expansion of that awakening, in that we have choices. And the first and foremost choice or understanding, I believe, is that spirit is real. The world of spirit is very real. And there are consequences to our actions in the pursuit of our awakening and further awakening. And sometimes even as children. I've always been, even as children, you know, let me finish that thought. We can have an awakening that we're not prepared for, that will set us about a course or not for the rest of our lives. How do you feel about that, Katie? How do you feel about that, Danielle? Angie, what do you think about that? The portals to spirit are many. The pursuit of them, we have a lot of choices. Doing it safely is always a great choice. The number of people that I have counseled who have gone for weekends or week-long trips and have pursued ayahuasca ceremonies in an unsafe manner. And again, I'm not talking about those that are utilizing it appropriately, but those that are paying amounts of money to have an experience, not necessarily an awakening of wisdom or universal truths, but to have an experience. And they're paying a large price, a big price. With their physicality, their mental, their emotional wellness. And it's become a thing. So if any of you are listening out there and you've been thinking to yourself, maybe I want to do that thing. Maybe I want to microdose some ayahuasca. Never done it before, don't know anybody really who has, but I've heard that it gives you a direct connect to an experience. I would urge you to maybe do otherwise and take that awakening slowly and maybe seek out somebody who has been trained in the old ways and question why it is maybe that you want to do it in that way. Because I will tell you, you will have an experience, and it may or it may not be a good one, and it may or it may not affect you for the rest of your life in good, bad, or in different ways. I've met people in my practice who have been physically harmed with permanent damage by people who have said that they were trained. They knew what they were doing. And the same is true when it comes to peyote or mushrooms. Know what you're doing. Know who it is that you're doing it with. Ask yourself the question, is there a better way? And that better way may be a slower way. I always urge people to take the slower way. One that's healthy for body, mind, spirit, and emotions. Danielle is saying, as someone once told me, discernment is the key. Thank you for that, Danielle. Yes, discernment is the key. It is most definitely the key. I couldn't believe it the first time that I saw a Ouija board being sold at Toys R Us. I didn't really realize Toys R Us, we don't have those really here in Michigan, where I live anymore, but that you could order them or buy them right there. Those portals between these two worlds of physical and non-physical are very real. And the thought of kids getting together. I remember an awakening I had just going to see when I was a kid, The Exorcist. I was 12 years old and I went with Kelly Spencer. She was Kelly Holt back then. It gave me an awakening. It wasn't a pretty awakening. It was a real awakening. I didn't do any drugs, but I did go something that tripped within me. An understanding and awakening that what I was seeing on the big screen way back in 1974, 75, whatever that was very real. It introduced me to a realm that I probably wasn't really ready for at that age, but it brought me into that realm. And I've met other young people and their parents that have watched a show, a movie with great violence or great horror in it, and it awakened something within them and around them. That's how closely connected to spirit we all are. Some of us are a little more closely connected. Yeah. Angie is sharing, I have one memory that really changed me. I was working on connecting with my guardian angel, and during my meditation, I asked for their name. I then heard Michael whispered in my ear. It was amazing. Yeah. Walking in pursuit of awakening in a good way, with discernment, with the understanding, first and foremost, that the realm of spirit is real, sets us on a good path, playing with it in a way of not understanding or disrespecting the reality of it, or poo-pooing the reality of it can have sometimes some consequences. Spirit is real and it's beautiful. It's magnificent. And just like here on the earth plane, on that playground of life that we have here, there are bullies, there are sharks, as we call them, and of course there are friends. And the same thing is true in the unseen world. So talking about discernment, talking about boundaries, first and foremost, when we understand that the world of spirit, the realms of spirit, as Sandy Herrick calls them, the octaves of spirit, it's a very real dimensions. Having respect for that is a wonderful boundary that we can give ourselves, that we can share with the world of spirit. Spirit is always watching us, whether we believe it or not. Spirit sees us. Having that same respect for spirit as we hopefully have for other people. Not going where we're not prepared to go. Finding a mentor, a teacher, a coach, call it what you will, to go with us into our uncharted territories. That's having discernment. That's being responsible. Having spirit whisper in your ear, call your name right out loud. I had that happen once many years ago at the time of my spiritual awakening. My adulthood spiritual awakening. As a young mother of little ones, going to college, working full time, questioning what is it all about and why am I so tired? And why is it that I'm having all of these dreams and experiences? And I've got to get a handle on this before it gets a handle on me. One of the very first things that I learned was to slow down as best I could. Not easy to do when you've got little ones at home and working and going to college, or in this case, in these days, teaching them from home. But slowing down. And learning that I didn't need to be open to everything, that I could find spirit wherever spirit was, which is everywhere, and setting some boundaries with it. One day I was upstairs cleaning my bedroom in this darling home that we lived in. Oh my gosh, it was like a little dollhouse. And I heard somebody call my name right out loud, but they didn't call me Denise, they called me Dana. And that was an awakening because it was right out loud and it was loud. And I was the only one in the house and the only one at that time aware of the fact that my birth name was Dana, is Dana. And I heard it. And for me, it was a sign and it was a wonder and an acknowledgement. And rather than pursue it in unhealthy ways, I did find a mentor. I found several mentors, actually. I found myself at the Dominican Center in Grand Rapids, Michigan with my spiritual director. I also found myself in Chicago at the home of Sonia Choquette. I found wonderful mentors to help me with the unfoldment of spiritual gifts and talents. Because with those gifts, you are given entrance into some pretty astonishing places. With spiritual awakenings, you are given opportunities for astonishing experiences. Some, like Angie mentions, angels whispering in your ear, the presence of loved ones who have passed, presence of Creator, of our guides and spirit allies, of the most astonishing parts of being alive. And some of it is astonishingly scary if we're not prepared. And some of it is spiritually mind-blowing. And some of it, if not done appropriately, is literally mind-blowing. This is the season of spiritual awakening for many, autumn, harvest time. We're coming up on a magnificent full blue moon on All Hallows Eve this year. It's a time of epiphanies, slowing down, going within, for consideration, when Spirit is most available to us and we are most available to Spirit at this time of the year. And the reason that I decided to do this show is because of this trend now for instant spiritual awakening and opening. And for those of you that are perhaps listening to me right now, wondering, what has this old fuddy-dud got to say about what I'm positing that I would like to do? I say, slow down. Slow down. Take a minute to become awake, to become aware that Spirit is right in front of you. It's all around you. I say, slow down and ponder that for a moment. Take a moment to ask nature when you're outside, show me that you're real. Show me that you're alive. Help me to understand. Help me to see, to feel, to hear. Thank you for helping me to see the spirit of you. Thank you for that. It's like getting to know a friend. Sometimes we have just these instantaneous, wonderful friendships. You know you like somebody. I look at Danielle, Angie, Katie. I know that you're listening. When I met these three women, instant liking. But the unfolding or the awakening of friendship or deeper relationship happens over time. That's where the good stuff is. Even in relationships with our spouses or significant others, it's something that happens over time. And it evolves. It expands. It awakens. As I'm talking about all of this, the wind is kicking up outside my window. To take a pause this season. How do you get to know who your angels are? Thank them for being your angels first and foremost. Thank you to my guardian angels. Thank you for being present in my life, and thank you for showing me and reminding me in good ways that you are near me. Thank you for protecting me from negativity. Thank you. Thank you for the signs and wonders that you give me. And then pay attention, be awake and aware. Sometimes those acknowledgments from the other side are so exquisite and subtle. Thank you to my loved ones on the other side who have gone home for reminding me that you're still walking with me, that you can still come to visit me. Thank you. Thank you for the signs that you give me, that we are still connected by love. Thank you for that. Thank you to my ancient ancestors Thank you to the beings of light who assist me every day in my continual awakening. Thank you for coming to me in my daydreams and my dreams. Thank you for sending me signs and wonders. Thank you for helping me to awaken gently to the reality of who I am. Thank you. Thank you for helping me to be the best friend I can be, the best mother, auntie, grandmother, wife. Thank you for helping me to awaken to all that I came here to be. Thank you for helping me to see it in gentle ways, in those places, in the pauses of my life. Thank you for sending to me and helping me to recognize the teachers in my life, the lessons in my life, the teachings in my life. Thank you. Thank you for helping me to let go, just like these autumn leaves, of what no longer serves my spiritual growth, my continued awakening. Thank you for helping me to let those fall from me gently. Thank you for helping me to see that my life is out of sync with nature all around me, and thank you for bringing me back into sync with nature, with the cycles of nature, with the cycles of my life. Maiden, mother, now crone. Thank you for bringing me the crone awakenings, the awakenings as a mother, as a maiden, wherever you happen to be. Thank you. Thank you for helping me to set good boundaries in my physical life, healthy boundaries, and boundaries in my spiritual life. Thank you for keeping me safe for what I'm not ready for yet. And thank you for bringing me the teachers in the physical and the non-physical world that will walk me into what is next in a good way for body, mind, spirit, and emotions. Spiritual awakenings happen. They have the potential to happen every day, little ones, big ones. How we pursue them, if we pursue them, that's up to us. Doing it in a good way is a wonderful thing. Discernment is key. Allowing for the unfoldment that our physical body is able to handle, because we are spiritual beings in a physical vehicle. I call this body of ours a psychic antenna. And what wattage are we ready for at any given time? What did we agree to? What did we know would be safe for this journey? Again, discernment is the key. There's so much beauty around us. Spirit is whispering to us constantly, talking to us, showing us. If we slow down, even if we slow down to breathe, consciously breathe, in those moments, we can have awakenings, just to the way a good breath feels. A deep breath and a deep exhalation. Sometimes we're reawakening to what we've already known and maybe forgot in the busyness. Spirit is all around and it's drawing closer at this time of the year. It sees you and it understands your quest to see, feel, know, smell it. Slow down, become awake and aware. Feel the wind that's blowing outside. Feel it blowing within you. The sun rises, the sun sets. The midday sun. Feel it within yourself. The autumn leaves falling. Let it be an awakening. A beautiful awakening or reawakening in the cycle of your life. With that, everybody, up next is Terry Ruel. And she's got a really great show today about seeing through the lens of wellness or mental illness or other such things that this human life brings. Understanding people through those lenses. With that, everybody, blessings be. Get out there and enjoy a beautiful day.